Very good afternoon and welcome to this particular talk show today. Of course, Nudipu in conjunction with the government of Uganda and NTV Uganda's. We do try to highlight, I wouldn't just say try, but we do make it a point to highlight the role of persons with disabilities as we move away from just the rhetoric, just the talk, towards more practical solutions to make sure that persons with disabilities are involved at each and every stage of decision making. This time around, a big decision is being made come 2021, the Uganda general elections. And of course, the persons with disabilities will have to be involved. Joining us to deliberate this particular conversation and ponder solutions going forward. To my left, I'm joined by the Minister of State for Disability and the Elderly, Honorable Sarah Kanyike. Honorable, many thanks for making time to speak to us. Right next to her, just to my immediate left, we have Mr. Aina Tony, who is a Program Officer, Gender and Disability at Nudipu. And to my extreme left, Mr. Odwa Dennis, who's a Manager for Policy and Rights also at Nudipu. Honorable Minister and gentlemen, thank you again for making time to speak to us today. Let me start with you, Mr. Aina. Just if someone is hearing the word or the acronym Nudipu for the first time, how would you try to explain to them Nudipu, let alone your mandate?
Thank you so much, Arnold. Nudipu is an acronym, and my manager will explain further, which stands for National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda. Literally meaning, when you hear union, it means it's a collection of a number of associations which is advocating for the rights of persons with disability. And this union envisages that when they are together, their voice may be heard better than when you are advocating as an individual. Because within disability, we have categories of disability, and challenges they face also vary from person to person.
Honourable, let me bring you into the conversation here. As the Minister of State for the Disability and, of course, the Elderly, how vast is your mandate? And you walking into the ministry, give me a sense of what actually the ministry entails at this particular point vis-a-vis persons with disabilities.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Good afternoon, viewers. Arnold, as you've asked me, if you look at the demography, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics of 2016, persons with disability constitute 12.4% of the Uganda population. That is not a small percentage. So this percentage has to be looked into and catered for as far as laws of Uganda are concerned. The Uganda legal and policy framework on disability inclusion is very important because this legal and policy framework provide a guide for economic empowerment and participation of persons with disability in the development process. Over the years, Uganda has been held for having a vibrant and responsive disability policy framework. But this one stems from her earlier legislative consideration and inclusion of persons with disabilities in the Constitution of 1995. That's where we start from. Constitution catered for people with disability because they are also Ugandans, they are citizens of this nation, and therefore, as we are making laws, they have to be catered for.
Right, Mr. Dennis, I think I should have brought you into that conversation just after we actually heard from Mr. Aina. Just walk us through, again, envisaging what the Honourable Minister is saying. This predates even our Constitution, even 1995. Where do we find ourselves now, bringing in what the Minister is saying, and Nudipu, as a person who's in charge of policy and, of course, rights at Nudipu, give us a sense of the mandate. How vast is it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Arnold, and our viewers out there. Good afternoon to you all. I just want to pick from where the minister stopped. Uganda as a country has come out with many policies in place. Even in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, we have affirmative action, which is also inclusive of the rights of persons with disabilities, giving opportunity to legislatures of this country to come out with the laws that will cater for persons with disabilities and all these other things, of which we are appreciative to the government and our parliament for coming out with some of these laws and regulations. And we are still saying, like, disability is an ongoing issue. There are still many more other things that we still need to bring on board, many more policies that we need to revise, the laws and all these other things. So it is a going concern. And maybe, Arnold, just to give a very brief background of NUDIPO. NUDIPO, as Tony has given us the full meaning of NUDIPO, is the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda. NUDIPO came into existence in the year 1987, and NUDIPO ensures that there is a just and fair society where persons with disability can live with a dignified life, a situation where persons with disabilities are not left behind. They are catered for. They are looked at as important and as equal as other members of the society. And the mission, we are looking at advocacy for the rights of persons with disabilities with a unified voice. Like my colleague Tony has said, we need to bring our voices together and we speak for persons with disabilities so that they are respected, so that they are valued, so that their rights are actually preserved. And as NUDIPO, we have the mandate of ensuring that persons with disabilities of all categories are brought together and they are able to speak. They are able to advocate for what they feel is right for them. They are able to look at the legislation and say this law is not disability inclusive. And also for the population and the government to listen to them and respond so that we are able to have an inclusive society whereby each and every person's rights is respected. So our mandate, we have like the National Disabled Persons Organizations that we have in different forms. Others are like for persons with albinism. We have the National Association for the deaf, for the blind, and all this. And all this, we have 14 National Disabled Persons Organizations, and we have 112 district unions. The district unions are like NUDIPO in the district. They speak for the rights of persons with disabilities at the district level. So we have 112 district unions in place. And these district unions are there speaking for the rights of persons with disability. And it is the mandate of NUDIPO to ensure that we bring together the voices from the district, from the national, and then we do meaningful advocacy for the rights of persons with disabilities.
Dennis, that's very fascinating. Let me just come back in.
Yes.
Because, okay, so at the district level, if something actually rises and it is taken up, let's say, to the central part where maybe they would stumble into Dennis here, how then does it make its way to the legislators at the parliament? How is that interaction?
NUDIPO is an advocacy-based organization, and we link up. It is our mandate to build the capacities of the district unions, and we are always connecting with them. So we have concerns from the different districts. Whatever is happening there, we get to know, because these district unions are part of NUDIPO. They are members of NUDIPO. And they always give us information. Even as we build their capacity, they give us the information. And whenever there's anything that needs actually being taken up, what is always done is we get this information. If this information needs advocacy, it is the role of NUDIPO at the national level to ensure that we bring it out as an advocacy issue, because we are able to reach the parliament. We are able, through our minister, who is now there, to bring discussion on table and say, these are the issues coming from down. about disability, and this is an aspect of advocacy. How do we go about with it? If it is about policies, how do we ensure that these policies are disability inclusive? And if it is about maybe the laws, how do we make sure that we revise these laws and make them to be disability inclusive? So we have our network. We have disabled persons organizations who bring issues to NUDIPO as an umbrella. We have the district unions, which are also members under NUDIPO, who bring their concerns. So NUDIPO is at the center where we can really take up these issues and see where we can take them for advocacy purposes.
Fascinating. Minister, let me bring you in again, Minister Kanyike, because now we understand the grassroots framework and how all of this finds its way to your office at the top. Give me a sense of then this very interesting line between advocacy, which is NUDIPO, and of course where you find yourself, where at the end of the day all the central planning and all the central thinking actually comes back to your corner office.
Thank you very much, Arnold. As far as the government or the ministry is concerned, other than the Constitution, as I told you, let me start from the international and regional levels. We have treaties which we have embraced as ministry, and these treaties concern issues of disabilities. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, of 2015. There is emphasis here that leaving no one behind. Everybody should be brought on board, including people with disability. As my colleague has told you, they advocate for the same. But we find that most of the issues, or some of the issues they come up with, are embedded here. So we have the treaty as Minister of Gender. We have the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities of 2006, which emphasize that people with disability shouldn't be left out in whatever aspect you think about. So we come together and then put together what is important. We have the UN Standard Rules of Equalization of Opportunities of 1993. All these are international treaties. But as a ministry, as a government, we have signed these treaties and we embrace them. When you look at the African level and East African level, we have the African Union Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of persons with disabilities. This was signed in 2018. All these treaties and others. So as ministry, we have the international and regional treaties. Then in addition to that, we have the national policies and the national laws, which I'll give details later on.
Definitely. Tony, let me bring you back into the conversation. If we were to talk about particular programs, I think one of the few that stand out, I'm sure you have many at NUDIPO, the ones around Kotido and of course Karamoja, which is as a region has had very tough times, to be honest, in the past decades. Give us a sense of how NUDIPO has been involved in the region. I think let's start there. We'll pick up from there.
Thank you so much, Arnold. As our slogan is there saying gender and disability inclusion in practice. As an advocacy organization, we are trying to move now from advocacy to practice. And at the moment, we have a project specifically tailor-made for Karamoja sub-region. Everybody from this country know, even from literature, even though you're not going to Karamoja, if you don't fear literature and you read literature about Karamoja, you can see the situation on the ground. The literature from Karamoja says persons with disability have a number of challenges, just like in other part of the country, but theirs is a bit higher. Therefore, we as NUDIPO, we have initiated a project this year called Gender and Disability Inclusion in Practice. This is a 4-year project, which is Austrian funded, and has a goal to contribute to realization of Sustainable Development Goal number 4, number 5, and number 10. Number 4 is about quality education. Number 5 is about gender equality. Number 10 is about reduction of inequalities. All this is aimed at realizing the objective of ensuring that persons with disability, with special emphasis on girls and women with disabilities, are empowered and can live independently. As I told you earlier, this project is a fighting to achieve sustainable development goal under 4 thematic areas. The first thematic area is prevention of GBV, gender-based violence, against persons with disabilities, still with a special emphasis on girls and women with disabilities. What is our intervention here? If we are saying we are fighting vices of gender-based violence, our first intervention is training of JLOs. JLOs, we mean justice, law, and other sector officials on GBV positive response. How best can they respond to cases of GBV? How best can they be accessible? How confident can a person with disability be to access them in case they have cases of GBV? Another one, we have legal representation of cases of GBV in the court. We shall represent these people legally in court of law if we register the case and investigate. That is especially for criminal cases. For civil cases, we shall promote ADR, alternative dispute resolution. There, we shall bring both parties together. We take them through ADR methods. ADR also has merits that is more sustainable, fair, speedy, and more sustainable. The other one is that we shall support logistically GBV survivor shelter, which is there in Karamoja. GBV survivor shelter, when we are talking in the layman term, it means a sort of rehabilitation center where somebody can come and get some counseling. If you have been a survivor, we don't call it a victim anymore, it's a survivor of GBV. We bring them there. And the last one, under GBV prevention, we shall develop a documentary on GBV prevention. We shall tell people from Karamoja and the national level that GBV against persons with disability is totally condemned to the strongest term possible, is barbaric, should never be condoned at whatever cost, and should be condemned by everybody at whatever capacity. That is theme 1. The second theme we are going to handle is about economic empowerment. Economic empowerment we are going to address through what we call VSLA methodology, which is tailor-made, which is a bit special, through what we call I-SAVE model. The traditional VSLA methodology had its own setback, and our approach is trying to bridge that gap through including persons with disability. We shall bring them together through training. We shall encourage them to start a saving group for themselves. At least 65% of them will be persons with disability, and the rest will be persons without disability, because we are fighting for inclusion. Practical. You know, the name is that gender and disability inclusion in practice. It's not that theoretical saying that, okay, let us bring these people on board, but this one we are going to move extra mile. And to account ourselves, is this practice having impact on the ground, of which we are pretty sure we shall have it on the ground. And then after that, when they take off, you know, VSLA matures, and then we link them to financial institutions, and they become independent financial. That's the bottom line for this intervention. The third one is about quality. Under quality education, we are going to, under quality education, we are going to advocate for what we are calling inclusive education. I've just concluded a gender analysis in Karamoja sub-region. The finding is amazing. I will soon share with everybody. But it's not amazing to somebody who is development-minded. It's a wake-up call. If you read the analysis, you will know that there's a lot to be done by everybody at different capacities. No one can be single-handedly pointed that you are the one who's supposed to do this, even in our different capacities. Girls with disability are far much behind in the tail of education. So we want to bring their parents together. We train them on inclusive education, independent living with child with disability, and we shall provide some rehabilitation services to them. The last one, I know, is building the capacities of our partners. Programmatically, you cannot implement anything alone. You need partners. So these partners are going to involve like-minded organizations which are working there on gender and disability issues, economic empowerment issues, and legal issues. Because this, we are trying to use a holistic approach and to move from the traditional advocacy to practice. There we shall train them on one, how to include persons with disability into your program. You know, most people, disability is still a gray area. most people, when you talk about disability, they understand it from their own model. But now we are saying, look, it's no longer time for hiding, it's a time for practice, let us come out, and this is our best to include them. Most people are willing to include persons with disability, but the problem is how. So after partnership with the respective development partners and the district, we shall take them through on how to practice disability inclusive programming. Thank you so much.
It's a lot to unpack. I'll be picking up a few points here and there as we go on and throw over to the other panelists. Before I come to you, Minister, let me just bring Dennis in. Tony has mentioned something around the issue of gender. Now, there's a reason why Honorable Kanyike's ministry has this very long name, which is Gender, Labor, and Social Development, right? It's almost impossible for us to talk about disability, maybe the elderly, irrespective of also gender issues. But the two of you will handle this gender paradigm. Dennis, the issue around gender-based violence vis-a-vis PWDs is, you're going to pardon me here, but I'm beginning to think it might actually be inseparable. Correct me if I'm wrong. As someone who is at the helm of policy and monitoring, how then do you balance whatever resources that you have at a time like this where everyone is pulling back spending? You're worrying about disabilities, there's gender-based violence, some of the interventions that Tony is highlighting are even gender issues. Just talk to me about this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Arnold, and our viewers. It is true that you cannot separate gender when you bring component of gender-based violence vis-a-vis disability, because disability has got no sex, disability has got no race, disability does not depend on the classes that can be set in the community. So the same community where we stay is the same community where we have persons with disabilities. And it is true that persons with disabilities do face these challenges. You see, the aspect of gender-based violence is something that we have our laws in the country that guard against gender-based violence. But you can't say because there is law, there's not going to be any issue of gender-based violence. But it becomes worse when you look at, in the perspective of disability, a situation whereby the gender-based violence is being directed upon somebody who is having disability.
Right.
And you know, gender-based violence can cause disability.
Please say that again for someone who missed it. Please.
Yes, gender-based violence can cause disability. And therefore, if gender-based violence can cause disability, you can now not underestimate gender-based violence that is again targeted on a person with disability. So what we are saying is, in the communities there, we cannot look at all these things happening and then we say it is normal. It will never be normal. That is why NUDIPO is coming out to see how do we strengthen the capacity of institutions like jailers, justice law, and other sector. How do we strengthen the capacity of the disabled persons organizations together with the district unions so that they are able to identify some of the gender-based violence concerns and be able to refer them to the right institutions to handle them. So that we don't take it as society and we say it is a normal thing. We need to act upon them. We need to bring the perpetrators of this kind of violence to books. We must see that they are held responsible for their actions, because a person with disability is as equal as that person without disability. And then there are issues. We are looking at how do we influence the policies, how do we influence the laws in the country to be sensitive when it comes to disability. How do we handle situations where a person with disability has been affected in terms of gender-based violence? Are we going to handle it the same way maybe some other person who has been affected by gender-based violence, or we need to develop mechanisms whereby it is convenient and also protective to persons with disabilities. And that is why we are talking about combating gender-based violence so that we enable persons with disabilities. This project is about women and girls, but we are looking at how do we empower them? How do we make them themselves to know that it is our right to be like this?
Right.
How do we make them to realize that it is important for us as persons with disability to act positively whenever there is something happening like this? That is why in our strategic focus as NUDIPO, we are looking at socio-economic empowerment of these persons so that they are able to speak for themselves, they are able to act whenever there is something going wrong.
Let me bring in the Minister because now we are navigating, let's say, uncharted territory, at least for some of us who look at these matters from the inside out. And what Dennis is alluding to, gender-based violence can actually cause disability. And he then interludes that into the fact that programs, at least from their end, are taking the socio-economic route through empowerment and ultimately create sort of a level playing field. Is this the same notion that the ministry actually subscribes to in many of your programs?
Thank you very much. Yes, the answer is yes. It's one of the ways the ministry. We have various programs in the ministry. We have the program of vocational rehabilitation centers. Vocational training is one of the mandates of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. We have 5 operational rehabilitation centers in the country. We have Chereka and Reza Rehabilitation Centers in Wachiso District. We have Luti Rehabilitation Center in Imbarara. We have Mpumude Rehabilitation Center in Jinja District and Okocho Rehabilitation Center in Arua District. The purpose of these rehabilitation centers is to offer vocational skills for all people, but including people with disability. We put emphasis with people with disability to participate in this training so that they acquire skills, which skills will enable them to do something and empower them economically. Secondly, another program we have what we call the National Special Grant for persons with disabilities. Since the financial year 2009-2010, government began implementing the special grant for persons with disabilities with the aim of providing funds to organize groups of persons with disabilities to start income generating activities. Because this was due to high level of unemployment levels of persons with disabilities because of the limited employable skills. We thought these people need a special consideration. Secondly, there is that negative attitude of society towards people with disability. So we thought as a ministry, let us come up with this grant, which is given to organize groups of persons with disability. Between 5 people and 15 people, they come up with their group, and then they are given a grant. Arnold, this is a grant, not a loan. We have loans for the youth, YLP, Youth Livelihood Programs. We have loans for Uganda Women Empowerment Programs. Those loans, people get them, but they pay back. But this is a grant which is given to these people so that we can empower them. As Dennis has said, these people need to be empowered. So we have we are implementing the special grant. It has been dispersed to people. In the financial year 2019-2020, government increased, we started with 3 billion, but government increased, made an additional Uganda shillings of 2.1 billion. And it is going through the Ministry of Finance. This money goes to organized groups and then they benefit from them. But currently, this financial year, the grant has been increased, and we have that one which is coming through Ministry of Finance, but there is also another one which is under the Ministry of Gender, which goes directly to the groups. We liaise with the districts. They come up, they send us those files of those groups of people with disability who are organized and they have projects. We give them 5 million a group of between 5 and 15, 5 million, they go and set up a project in order to improve their livelihood.
Minister, you've mentioned the Youth Livelihood Program, and I remember I saw the audited report for the Auditor General ending 2018, and I think close to 265 billion was allocated to the Youth Livelihood Program. I'm hearing now that the grant program that is being run for the persons with disabilities is what? Oh, just over 2 billion. Wouldn't one argue that given the fact that, well, persons with disabilities getting a job is hard in itself in this country where the society is just beginning to accept them, wouldn't one argue that 2.1 billion is a little shy?
2.1 is additional. At the moment, the total is 5 billion.
It's 5 billion.
5 billion, which goes through Ministry of Gender. But there is also the other one, which started in 2009, financial 2009-2010, which comes through Ministry of Finance.
Right. Thank you for that, Minister. Thank you for that clarification. We're going to take a quick break, but we do continue with this particular panel discussion as we do unpack the role of persons with disabilities vis-a-vis also empowerment, socio-economic, let alone the election that is looming large in just under 6 months. All that and more right after this. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I'm Arnold Sagawa, and this particular talk show is really a bid to unpack the technicalities of walking away from mere rhetoric to practice when it comes to empowering the persons with disabilities in this particular republic called Uganda. Joining me for this particular one, to my left, we have the Honorable Sarah Kanyike, who is the Minister of State for Disability and the Elderly. Right next to her, to my left also, her left, is Tony Aina, who is the Program Officer, Gender and Disability at NUDIPU. And to my extreme left, Dennis Owa, who is the Manager, Policy and Rights, still at NUDIPU. Odwa. My apologies. My apologies. Honorable Minister, let me just continue with the issue around empowerment, economic empowerment for this particular one, because as we've established, it's almost impossible to create a level playing field if at all not everyone has the same money in their pocket. So how is the ministry handling this particular one?
Thank you very much, Arnold. As I had started on it, that we came up with this national special grant for people with disability in order to enable them come up with income generating activities or projects in order to improve their livelihood. When I joined the ministry, I've just, by the way, just joined the ministry now is 2 months,
Yes.
but I had to move in some districts of Uganda, and I'm still on that tour.
Yeah.
But to the districts I've gone, I've been in Chenjojo, I was in Gulu, I was in Mukono, I was in Kamuli. You find that people with disability are very organized, is a very organized group. They have their groups there. They're just waiting for money in order to start projects. What they're lacking is capital. Unlike the youth, as you said, money is given to the youth, but they misuse the money. But people with disability, this is the fact.
Yeah.
I didn't read this, but I've seen it myself. I've been to these different groups in the various districts which I've mentioned. So these people, and we are just trying to assist them, especially because they don't just come out of the groups and then come to the ministry, but they have to go through their respective districts.
Right.
So we are trying to assist them to make sure that these districts assist them to come up with the necessary documentation in order to enable them to get this money so that they can improve their livelihood. This money is targeting 3 categories of people. We are looking at people with disability themselves. We are looking at parents of children with disabilities, and we are looking at caretakers of people with disabilities. So you could be a parent when you are not disabled, but you have a child who's disabled. So you qualify for this money. You may be a caretaker. You are the guardian who's looking after this person. So this money is targeting you in order to enable this person we are looking after who is disabled to improve his or her life. So this money is there. I'm just urging the public, members, people with disability, with organized groups, please go to their respective districts in order to help you. We have the CDOs there, community development officers who assist them to come up with the proper documentation of what is required. Then those districts bring those files at the ministry with opened accounts, bank accounts. The money goes on their accounts in order to enable them to do something to improve their livelihood.
Tony and Dennis, let me bring you into the conversation here. Tony, you've specifically worked, as we established earlier on, with the Karamoja region and Kotido region. What the minister alludes to is maybe the other problem that we have. At times there isn't, people remain oblivious to the fact that some of these facilities are existent and they're being handed away by the government free of charge. This is a grant, you know, a non-payable. Maybe the two of you could address this. Let me start with you, Tony. Maybe Dennis, you'll finish it up. Are people aware of some of these programs? And also, isn't it maybe the next step if the Nudipus of this world come out there and try to empower the persons with disabilities around the lines of this is how you write, let's say, a business report, a preposition of sorts? Is that the next step?
Thank you so much, Arnold. That is the next step, and these people are aware. In the district, in every district in Uganda, we have community development officer in charge of disability, fully paid by the government, fully employed by the government, and we are working with them in the district. These people are doing amazing jobs. Remember, people with disability are organized, and we are not implementing this program in isolation. We are working with them. And we are augmenting, we are supplementing already what is there. We are not bringing anything extremely new. We already know that this is how much the government is doing, and this is how much we can intervene economically in terms of economic empowerment. I told you about our approach of VSLM methodology using I-SAVE approach, where in our group we want a greater percentage to be persons with disability. Because of what the minister just stated, they are very trusted. The moment you trust them, they don't let you down, economically in terms of empowerment. Economically, in terms of empowerment, those who have done this kind of development work can testify. And in this group, we want at least 65% of them to be persons with disability. And among these, still, we want a greater percent. We did that 65 to be women and girls. And then the other ones, we want caretakers. The way the minister has put it, caretakers of persons with disability. And this caretaker is a representative of that person with disability in the group. Maybe this person is a person with disability who is visually impaired, or maybe has psychological challenges. That person can be represented in the group by the caretaker. And then also in this group, after training them on saving, we go extra mile to train them on their rights. We train them on entrepreneurship, enterprise selection. Given your local environment, what can you start doing here? In your own capacity. In your own capacity, what is viable from here? We take them through enterprise selection. They select their own nature of business which they think they can afford based on their prior experience, or maybe based on some basic training which may give to make them take off in terms of enterprise selection. And then from there, we shall link them to financial institutions, especially for that one is towards the 4th year. When all these groups are matured, they have a lot of money, we want them to be linked. You should remember that most people with disability were not accessing financial services from the banks. Why? Because, you know, society was not organized in a way, in the sense that it makes persons with disability to have very low self-esteem. Huh? You are made to believe that you are comfortable to stay at the back. That is your position. But we are saying no. Based on such SDGs, which we are fighting for, of which it has a principle of leave no one behind. And when we are looking at who are these people behind? People behind in terms of development, persons with disability. And if they are to be brought forward, the very development we advocate for, we shall see the real development we talk about. This morning I was reading from a newspaper. There was some incident in Kampala where some beggars did something. You might have read, you know this. You are alert. Mm-hmm. These were people who are begging. They ambushed somebody because it crossed their territory, something of that kind. But these are people who could be empowered if they could easily be brought together. So in our intervention, we are supplementing what the government is already doing there. And based on that, we shall go far. I've gone to Karamoja. There are a number of groups which are very successful, disability groups. People have a lot of myths about Karamoja, but if you go there, you will regret. On your arrival, say, oh, I blundered. Either blindly, or most people blundered blindly, but they are pro-development. They are willing to take off, and they're waiting for us to help them, of which NUDIPO has decided to go extra mile to do that. Thank you so much, Arnold.
Dennis, your take?
Yes, thank you very much, Arnold, and viewers out there. I want to pick from where Honorable Minister gave details about how government is supportive and availability of funds and support to persons with disabilities. I think this is a very positive note. Government is trying to do all this to empower persons with disabilities. And if persons with disabilities are empowered, then they become economically stable and independent. They can do a lot more than how the society and the communities look at them. The challenge could be how persons with disabilities farm there in the villages and the communities, having knowledge about some of these government efforts to empower them economically. And I do think there's still some gaps when it comes to like giving these informations to be accessible
And
to persons with disabilities. Enough sensitizations to the communities. I'm happy with the presence of community development officers, but these community development officers, they need facilitation if they are to reach like each and every corners of their districts. But when you sit with them and you talk with them, they may also, they also have challenges. Like they may lack enough fuel to move all over the district and mobilize persons with disabilities. And also another area of challenge is also basically on the ways in which some of these informations are given. Is it accessible to all persons with disabilities? How do we make a person with a visual impairment to learn about these opportunities that is there with the government? How will you make somebody who has a physical disability, who may not access, maybe like going to the sub-county somewhere because of maybe the roads are not well accessible? How can that person get information about availability of these government programs? I think what is still needed is the advocacy for this kind of government programs to be access to persons with disability, irrespective of what kind of disability. I'm very happy when I see Honorable Minister carrying a braille material for persons with the visual impairment to read some of the government programs. That is positive. That is inclusion we are talking about.
Definitely. For some of our viewers who are not familiar with Braille, it is, but I don't want to call it a language. It is a means of communicating that was developed by the late Braille, an innovator in his own regard, where he could actually you could feel the let's say the alphabet of sorts and be able to read by feel. And it's definitely,
it is quite amazing.
It's progress that
it is progress,
the act has been put in Braille.
Yes.
Because when you put, for example, Persons with Disabilities Act into Brailles, then you are ensuring access to information about the rights of persons with disability.
But now, isn't the next
to somebody who has visual impairment can read these informations and be aware about the rights and the services that they should be getting.
Of course, now, Dennis, the next step is having the ballot with some Braille on the side. That's definitely the next step. The minister is here because now we need to have the ballot paper with Braille on the side because let's face it, how many blind people
this is what we have been pushing for. You know, advocacy is a continuous process. And you know, changing all these things to be in a format accessible, it needs actually planning and also involving resources. And what I want to push is that we shall continue to advocate for these things, for these changes. And even in the electoral processes, We want to see electoral processes being disability inclusive, right from the process of nomination, process of campaign, process of voting. We want to see this being inclusive of persons with disabilities. And we appreciate whatever is being done, but we are not saying it is now the best. We are still saying, can we improve on this area? I think earlier there was a discussion also that was tailored by Nudipo in the area of electoral processes.
Yes, yes.
And I think one of the key issues is what you are talking about. Can these ballot papers be made in a format that even person with the visual impairment can just touch and feel the name of the candidate and vote rightly without anybody leading him or her to tick?
Yeah.
Because if somebody who is leading you has a different opinion from what you think, and you can't test using your fingers as braille in the document, then the person can make you tick wrongly, and you'll be very convinced, like, I voted for my candidate.
That's a lot of votes. That's a lot of votes.
These are some of the things that these are advocacy matters. And linking it to what Tony had talked about in form of empowerment. You cannot say you have empowered somebody if that person cannot do things on their own. Empowerment is about changing the economic lives of somebody, changing the way somebody thinks, changing the way somebody does things. Because when you empower a person with disability, it makes that person to be self-reliant and independent. The person can make a decision. You know, in order for you to make a decision for yourself, you must have something upon which you are making decision. Otherwise, people will not take you seriously. If you want to make a decision to take your child to a better school, first you have to be economically empowered. You need to have some money. So this economic empowerment project, if it is conceived well and persons with disabilities are mobilized, adding with what Honorable Minister said, availability of funds to support persons with disabilities in groups, I do really believe that it can cause some changes in the lives of persons with disabilities.
Right. Dear panelists, we're actually running out of time. The last issue I want maybe the Minister to address before your final remarks, gentlemen, is, Honourable Minister, the issue around some low-hanging fruit. You mentioned that 2 months ago is when you walked into the ministry. Give me a sense of what, in your view, is achievable to turn around the tide for persons with disabilities in the country in the shortest time possible. I'm not talking about another 5 years or another 10 years. What, in your view, when you've gone to Chenjojo, like you mentioned, what do you see as something that is achievable in the shortest time possible?
Thank you very much, Arnold. What is achievable in the shortest time possible? I want to put emphasis on this national special grant for people with disability. If these funds can reach persons with disabilities, they can change their lives in the shortest time possible. But as my colleague, as Dennis has said, at times people with disability don't get this information. So I urge leaders, because if you look at persons with disability, the inclusion starts from the grassroots on the LCU council zone levels. We have people represent persons with disability. You come to the parish level, we have people represent persons with disability. You come to the sub-counties, the division, the districts. I urge the leaders who are representing persons with disabilities to take on issues of persons with disability with more emphasis, to see that they assist. As Dennis has said, some of these people maybe may have the problem of accessibility, of reaching where the districts are, the offices are, but they have their representatives at different levels, at the district level, at the county level, at the division level. So I urge them, those leaders, to see that they take issues of people with disability seriously and assist them to see that they get these funds. Because, Arnold, as I've told you, this is a grant. The money is there. The money is available. But what is important, as Dennis has said, maybe some of our people don't know that this money is there. Let leaders assist our people to access this money so that the lives of people with disability can be improved.
Tony and Dennis, let me start with you. Tony, low-hanging fruit, what is achievable in the shortest, in the near term, as we would say?
In the near term, there are two things that are achievable. One, these people are going to achieve justice in a number of areas on how this will be treated. And one of the justices is that we are saying, look, let us, even access of information is justice. It's like if they're not accessing information, there is some injustice somewhere, because this information is given to everybody, irrespective of where you are and every factors we may associate somebody with. So these people will access justice. To a number of our campaign strategies, like now, a number of sports messages running over FM radio station for these people to be included by a number of development partners, even those working there. In that program, we are saying, please, if you want to achieve a sustainable development, bring these people also on board. Then also another thing which is going to be achievable is similarly what the minister just said, economically, they are going to be empowered. We are going to bring them in a group, trickle their skills already, and make them also to be the dominant of their destiny, not somebody else determining them where they should go, because we were pretty sure that they know what they want, but at times somehow, somewhere, due to lack of proper consideration of their opinion, they are made to lose the track in a way. But for us, their opinion is core. That's why in our approach, we take them through enterprise selection of what they can do. We don't dictate to them that do this, no. We say this is it's like a menu. You take what you feel is a delicacy to you in terms of enterprise selection. Doing that way, we believe the intervention will be very sustainable, because they will have taken part. They have participated in bringing that thing on board, but not the other traditional approach where people could just be pushed that do this, I think it's good for you, because nobody knows what is good for him more than him or herself. Thank you so much.
Dennis, low-hanging fruit.
Thank you so much, Arnold.
As we move away from rhetoric towards practice.
Yeah, and viewers out there, I do believe that the situations of persons with disability can change. But this begins with having the right attitudes towards persons with disabilities. How do we make people out there to know that persons with disabilities are having equal rights and should be given equal opportunities like the other people? How do we support persons with disabilities to achieve their dreams? I want to say what is achievable is the constructive engagement with the government, ministries, and departments, so that they get to understand the challenges that persons with disabilities are going through, and then positive actions are taken to ensure that some of these setbacks are addressed through policy reforms, through engagement with the district leaders, sub-county leaders, so that these things, the challenges that persons with disabilities are facing, can easily be addressed. Another thing that is achievable is Tony talked about the issue of engagement with the partners. And we are talking about strengthening their capacity to understand the disability issues, and also making them strong enough to know that some of these issues can really affect the lives of persons with disabilities. Like when it comes to the gender-based violence, how do we make the society to own this? How do we make the civil society, who are our partners, to put their eyes on the issue of gender-based violence, right, and ensure that our communities, inclusive of persons with disabilities, are free from gender-based violence? Right. And then lastly, which may be a continuous process, is ensuring that we, as a country, we advocate seriously for policy reforms. We should be able to look at the policies that we have in the country, we look at the laws that we have in the country, and then we tailor this to be disability inclusive. We make everyone to consider person with disability as important, and this should be taken up in form of planning in form of bringing different developmental programs in the communities, we should begin to ask ourselves, where are persons with disabilities in this?
Definitely. Let's have some final remarks. I'm afraid we're out of time. Very, very briefly, let me start with the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Arnold. I just want to say that disability issues are cross-cutting. They move from one sector to the other, political, economic, social. So it is necessary for all people to see that people with disabilities are included in whatever aspect is being conducted. And then lastly, I just want to urge my people with disability and all Ugandans at large that COVID-19 is there. COVID-19 exists. Let us continue observing the SOPs. Let us wash our hands regularly. Let us put on our masks, and let us avoid crowds whenever it is necessary.
Thank you for that, Honourable Minister. Tony?
Thank you so much, Arnold. Viewers, I would wish to congratulate everybody who decided to listen to this program. This program is just a beginning. It will still continue. But we are saying at our different capacities, let us be disability inclusive. Disability comes at different stages. You may get it due to gender. You may get it due to a number of factors. And it is going to be unfortunate for you to start to learn about it at a later stage. It is good to start learning about it at this moment programmatically, at a family level, at an institutional level, through a number of policy strategies you are having in place, and a number of programs which you are going to design, because in our various areas of intervention, we have these people in the community, but when you scan through our program, they are again missing. Yet they should have been first in the priority. If it was hunger, they should have been the first people to be served, but they are not in the serving list. Right. So I'm asking you kindly, our development partners across the country, not only Karamoja, but across Uganda, let us, as much as possible, have a separate budget line with a clear intervention strategy. NUDIPO is here in Uganda 24 hours for consultation and meaningful engagement as far as issues of disability is concerned. If you have any challenges, NUDIPO can chip in, support you freely, and we make these sustainable development goals realizable and more meaningful for everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay, you've hit it into Dennis' time. Dennis, very briefly.
Thank you very much, our viewers from out there, and thank you, Arnold, for moderating this talk show. I just want to communicate to somebody who is listening to us out there that disability is not inability. And we should actually do everything that it takes to ensure that persons with disabilities are treated fairly, justly, and there should be, they should be engaged and involved in every aspect of development, and they should be participating for their individual development and to be part of the major developmental attributes in this country. And I just want to say, like Tony has alluded on that, we need to engage with the different development partners. We still have a lot of issues to be addressed when it comes to disability, and we want to work closely with the government through our minister. We also want to work closely with the different ministries, departments, and agencies so that we collectively see that we improve on the livelihoods of persons with disability in this country.
Okay, many thanks for that. I'm afraid that's all the time that we did have for this particular talk show, but the conversation continues. Many of these series will be coming your way in the subsequent weeks and months. Allow me to thank my panelists. To my immediate left, the Minister of State for Disability and the Elderly, Honorable Sarah Kanyike. Right next to her left, we do have Mr. Tony Ayina, who is the Program Officer, Gender and Disability at NUDIPO, and to my extreme left, Mr. Dennis Odwa, who is the Manager, Policy and Rights at NUDIPO. I'm Arnold Sagawa. That's where we'll leave it. Allow me to hand over to our subsequent programming, but don't miss, we'll be bringing this particular series in the course of the weeks and the months from me. Have a good afternoon.